Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm spooky Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next door neighbor and lifelong best friend.
Normal Kramer England.
What are you talking about? You got a
I'm
beard
sorry,
on
I'm
right
not.
now.
Oh yeah, I guess that's
You're not. You're not.
maybe
You're
that's
not feeling.
spooky.
You're not feeling scary. You're not feeling.
No, I don't feel. I don't ever feel scary.
Well, how do you feel about the hot? Are you a big Halloween guy, or I feel like I should know
No,
this, but
no, I know. I'm not a big Halloween. I mean, I love the season. It's a lot of fun. I like horror movies, but not like they're not my go-to. Like I think I appreciate when they do something different with a genre, kind of like the movie we're talking about. Kind of like the movie that we're talking about today with the Blair Witch
yeah.
Project. I appreciate when they do things that kind of push the genre in a different direction or kind of make something a little bit different. But like just like your run-of-the-mill horror movies, I don't care much for those. So
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most like produced genres in all of film. And
yeah.
so there are so many horror movies. That's the
Yeah.
thing. And the vast majority of them are not very good. And so I really do. I think the reason why movies like the Blair Witch Project stick in the cultural consciousness is because whenever it's done well,
Yeah.
it sticks. Like
Yeah.
Halloween, The Thing,
Yep. Love those.
even Jaws to an extent.
Yeah. Yeah. The Sixth
Like
Sense.
the Sixth Sense, like Hereditary, like there's these
Yeah.
movies that like
Yeah.
are these The Ring, we talked about we did
Yeah.
an episode on The
Yeah.
Ring, and this is absolutely one of them.
Oh, yeah.
This, we've already talked about on our Oner Funners that the Blair Witch Project is not the original found footage,
No.
faux documentary horror film.
Yeah.
Uh, there's Cannibal Holocaust. There's
Yeah. The Connection, except for that's like a
yeah,
drama, but there's a few others of these, yeah, and it
I think
was
there's one that's called like The Last Broadcast that
yeah,
came out.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's something
Uh-huh.
like and then there's like Alien Abduction, which seemed kind of interesting too, so
But this is regarded by many people as maybe the best or the one that like really helped to popularize the
yeah.
genre in
I think it really pushed the genre forward because they did everything right with this movie in regards to going all in on this genre. I mean, it's a horror genre, but this found footage style, which it was at the time, right? They made it as if it was really found footage instead of like a lot of movies now that are found footage. Like I think about Cloverfield. I like that movie, but you can tell like it's very, very highly produced. There's like like it doesn't look like it was real in any way. It's just using that genre to its advantage. This looks like it was real. Like they made it poorly on purpose to give in to this style that they were going for.
Yeah, honestly, I'm so glad we chose to do this movie.
Oh yeah, me
My general feeling about this after watching it again, I didn't know how it was going to go down for me because I hadn't
yeah,
watched it in years, and I didn't know if it was going to have the same impact on me that it did when I
yeah,
was younger. I
yep,
didn't know if the performances were going to I remember feeling as a kid that the verisimilitude in this film and
yeah, yeah,
the groundedness
yeah,
was what really pulled me in. But I was like, maybe I'm gonna come back to it and find that like the performances feel phony or that it's like
yeah,
not it or that it doesn't work as well as I remember. And watching it, I just was so impressed by this movie. I'm just
yes,
like this has become a very, very marketable and profitable genre in horror. And there are a lot of good examples of movies that are good movies and entertaining movies and fun movies that use this style.
yeah,
But mostly it seems like these days the reason why people choose to do the found footage style is because it's cost effective. It's
oh
just
yeah, yeah,
like it's the reason why people like to operate in the horror genre to begin with is it's one of the cheapest and biggest bangs for your buck you can get, where it's like we can do an entire movie set
yeah,
in one or two locations
yeah,
and have like a few cool practical effect shots
yeah,
and we can sell a lot of tickets and you make
and
yeah,
you do not need a star. It is one
right,
of the very, very, very which actually it might be one of the only genres where you do the star is the horror. So you
right.
don't need a Leonardo DiCaprio to come in there to give it some sort of, pull. The horror is the star. So it's cheap and you can use anybody you want, as proven with this film as well.
In fact, when you put someone like Leonardo DiCaprio in something that feels like a horror movie, like Shutter Island, say,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
it winds up making the film not feel as much like a horror film because you're like,
Right.
I feel like I'm watching a prestige thriller drama
Yeah.
that has horror elements because Mark Ruffalo's here and
Yeah.
Ben Kingsley's here and Leonardo DiCaprio and Michelle Williams is
Yeah.
here. Like horror almost it almost works better when the actors are mostly unknown. I will make an
Yeah.
exception for Toni Collette in Hereditary because that's one of the best
Oh, yeah, yeah,
horror
yeah. Yeah.
performances of all time.
Yeah.
But
Shot in Utah, by the way.
yep, yep.
Actually, my coworker was the special effects supervisor, I believe, on that one. So
Yeah,
he got to work.
the guy that is currently attached to direct the film that I'm producing right
Oh,
now,
yeah, that's right.
was
He told me
he
that.
got his start on that film. It was
Yeah, that's
Hereditary
great.
was his first thing. I mean, he didn't direct it, obviously. Ari Aster
Yeah,
directed it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
he was there and he has some really great stories from the set. But
Yeah, yeah, so does my friend. He has a few, which is great.
yeah. Um, but yeah, this movie, I just I don't think personally, this is my personal opinion because this movie is divisive with fans.
Yeah,
Critics, it has a very high critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it has like an 86% or something.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the fan score, the audience score, I should say, is like 58%. And
Okay.
I think that fans of the horror genre, if they don't like this movie, it's because they find it boring. They think that just
Yes.
like not enough happens. There
Yeah.
there are no jump scares in this movie, not a single one. There's no soundtrack. There's no like
No,
music
no.
hits that make you jolt. There's no it's and there are no like major set pieces where like something insane happens. The
Yeah.
biggest thing is the very last sequence, and that's not even that big. It's like
No, no.
quite subtle
Oh, yeah.
and small, and but it's and I think it's totally valid if that's why people don't like the film,
Yeah,
but it's the reason why for my personal taste, I don't think that this genre has ever been done this well before or after.
yeah,
I personally feel like this is like the
yeah.
gold standard of what you should be trying to accomplish with a found footage
Yeah.
movie.
Well, and one of the things which I totally understand if people don't like this, because I looked on Letterbox today and I saw a friend's review, and he's like, I was pretty underwhelmed. He's like, but it would have been good if I saw it when it came out. And I think this movie does have a lot of mystique to it if you grew up in the time period like we did. Like
Yeah.
when we grew up, it affects us a lot more because we're remembering what we thought it was, that we thought it was real. Like I remember you and I having conversations about thinking that this was real. Like,
Yeah.
dude, it's
Oh,
real,
yeah.
man. Like it's real. I saw that documentary. Like I saw the parents on the news, like,
But they did such a good job
oh
with the
yeah.
marketing campaign. They
Oh,
did such a
absolutely.
And again, watching it, I just watched it yesterday, and watching it again, I was like, this feels real still." And
Oh
it's
yeah.
not just that I'm remembering, like, how it's
Yeah.
again, like, when we watched Ninja Turtles, it's the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
kind of experience that I go back and I'm like, "Is this as good as I remember it, or
Yeah.
was I just a kid?" And I watch it and I'm like, "I actually think this movie's kinda surprisingly good." I watched the second one, which I also loved as a kid,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, this sucks." So I can tell I know I'm capable of watching something as an adult that I liked as a kid and going, "This isn't as good as I remember
Yeah.
it."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of sort of like the more I watch Return of the Jedi as an adult, I'm kinda like, "This movie's it's like it's the weakest of the 3 for sure." Whereas a kid, it was like my favorite. I loved Return of the
Right.
Jedi,
Right.
but I'm like, Empire Strikes Back is the best of the original 3 for sure. Um,
Right. Right.
but it's I coming back to the Blair Witch Project, I just was still from the very beginning, I was like, and it's like Olivia and I watch a lot of true crime,
Yes. Yeah.
documentaries together,
Me and
and
Amy as well.
the footage from Heather's camera
Yeah.
specifically looks so much like the footage that you see in these true crime documentaries
Oh, yeah.
of like home videos of
Yeah.
Christmas at like
Yep.
it just feels it was so smart of the directors to have the actors film it
Yes.
and
Yes.
not have professional cinematographers film it,
Yeah.
because it feels like a real
Yeah.
person is shooting it. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like they have a shot list that they need to accomplish for the day, and they're,
Right.
like, setting up shots and composing shots. That's
Yeah.
not what's going on here.
No.
It's yeah,
And that is one of the big problems with found footage. The found footage genre now is that it's just too professional.
right.
Again, Cloverfield, it's like they have these really high-end cameras, and I'm like, wow, that's some good camera work. And how do you have 5.1 Dolby surround sound on your camera? That doesn't make any sense. Like, what is that? How did that happen? Like,
That's
it
and speaking of which, I love the sound in this
yes,
movie, in the Blair
because
Witch
it's so
Project.
bad.
And the fact that the sound only comes from her camera and it doesn't come from the
Yeah,
16 millimeter camera. So
yeah,
if we're watching the 16 millimeter cam and it's, it's 15 feet away from
yeah,
Heather, we
yeah.
can only hear her voice
Yeah,
faintly. But
like in
like,
the end, yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. And it's like, it's just, yeah, I
yeah.
love the sound design because it's so disorienting
It
too.
is, yeah,
And, you know, and it's another thing that just we all grew up watching home videos, so we know
yeah,
what amateur home videos look like, and we know what
yeah,
amateur camera work looks like.
yeah,
And even as kids who made movies growing up, you and me made movies, we know
mhm,
because that's kind of what this movie is like it's a bunch of college kids who like want to be filmmakers
yeah,
and they're learning how to be filmmakers, but they're not pros at it yet
no,
by any
no,
stretch of the imagination. And it looks like amateur filmmakers who are cutting their teeth and trying to figure out what their own personal style is.
yeah.
Uh
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely, and I think the thing that I really picked up on this, again, like the performances, because they didn't have a script. They kind of like the directors just gave them direction. I think they left them notes, like, every morning, and they'd tell them, "Do this, do that, do this," and they
And
kinda would guide them.
they would give each of them different notes and different
Yes,
motivations, and they
yes.
wouldn't let them tell each other
No.
because like in
Yeah,
real life, it's like, well, they wouldn't know what my inner
yeah,
motivation is,
yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, and so they like it was great because they just left it all to the actors. And the thing that I picked up on this one that I really, really loved is so Heather Donahue, which is
Mhm.
her real name. They used their real names, which added
Right.
to the realism again. But her performance is like so I was so amazed by it this time because she's like a film student, right?
Uh-huh.
And she is so overly confident when she shouldn't be.
Yeah,
And I have seen so many people like that. They just never can admit that they're wrong,
right.
and they're like always, "No, I'm right. This is what it is. This is perfect. No, you're gonna look back on this and laugh." And it's like, "Oh my gosh, you are so annoying because your performance is so true to like somebody who would be like that because she never admits she's wrong. She always says she knows exactly where she is, but they're totally lost. And like which to me, I was like, wow, she has a really good arc in this movie. She actually has one where
Mhm.
she finally breaks down in the very, very famous scene where it's right in on her face. And
Uh-huh.
she finally admits that, like, I did all this. Like, I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know what I was doing. So her performance, like, blew my mind this time.
But also, I all 3 of them, do
Oh,
such a
yeah.
good job.
Yeah.
Like, when the way that the guys ratchet up their frustration and their sort of descent
Yeah.
into madness, the scene where they're both laughing and she's like when they've lost the map
Yeah.
and she comes over and she's like, "This isn't funny, stop laughing." Like, "What do you like, what are you guys laughing about?" And when Josh looks at her and is like when he's like, "Heather, don't make me yell at you right now. Don't
Yeah.
make me yell at," like, dude. But also, like, when Josh talks to her and he's like, "Heather, that's not cool, dude.
Yeah.
That's not cool. That's the least like, when he like,
Mhm. Mhm.
it all just feels so real. And
Yeah.
again, this thing that the directors did where they left the dialogue up to their actors, just gave them,
Mhm.
like, their motivation for the day and what they wanted their kind of direction to be for the day.
Right.
This could have gone wrong so easily.
Oh,
This
yeah.
could have resulted in an unwatchable film.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're taking that's again why I'm so impressed with the movie is because I feel like if you went out and tried to use the exact same ingredients again and tried to recreate what they managed to make, and just got like 3 random actors that no one's ever heard of, gave them a couple handheld cameras and said like, "We're just gonna tell you your motivation every day, and you're just gonna sort of improv your way through this movie,
Yeah.
and we're gonna cut it together into something that works." It's just like the risk you run is like, what if we just don't wind up getting anything? What if
Yeah.
we like at the end of it, we can't cut something together that even works as a
Mhm.
movie, like,
Yeah.
or it's just not interesting, or the performances feel phony
Yeah.
and feel like I kept leaning into like watching it and the scene work and being like, it doesn't feel like it's written. It does
Mhm.
feel like it's but it also doesn't feel like actors doing improv, if that makes
No.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It feels like real people talking to each other.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I don't know the you could definitely argue the ethics of this because I think a
Right,
lot of the frustrations were real,
right.
and the filmmakers did, like, take away some of their food, and they told them to go places, and they weren't in the right spot, or they told them, they left them hanging for a long, long time, they left them waiting just to make them frustrated, so it's kind of like, is that really ethical to do? I mean, but I think also the actors gave into it, right? Like they're supposed to be frustrated with each other.
Yeah.
So I think it all worked out. Like it all, and I mean they only filmed for 8 days. So luckily it wasn't too crazy. And I think the filmmakers were always around. But yeah, it did not feel like improv. It just felt like they used a lot of truth in their performance because that's probably what they were feeling anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if I like hearing the actors talk about this film, and you're right, there is a conversation to be had about whether or not the way this was made is
Right.
ethical, and I would argue that like it's probably not. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't as a filmmaker, I would not put a group of actors through something like this
No.
unless it was something that like we had all discussed
Right.
beforehand and everyone was like, "No, we're down. Like, we're
Yeah. Yeah.
totally down and,
Yep.
like, let's get wild, let's do it." Then it'd be like, "Okay, as long as everyone, like, knows what they're signing up for and everyone is, like, fully consenting to this and everyone's, like,
Mhm.
excited about it." Because hearing the actors talk about it, they're like, "Listen, we weren't going home at the end of the shoot day to, like,
Yeah.
a hotel room.
Yeah.
We were camping in the woods, and it was cold, and they were taking our food away. So
Yeah.
by the 4th or 5th day of shooting, we had to ration food while we were walking around and
Yeah.
like at by night like and we were working all day, like we were
Yeah.
shooting all day long
Yeah.
and and trying to get footage all day long,
Yeah.
and by the end of the day we would be like tired and cold and wet,
Mhm.
and like when it's raining in the movie it's really raining, like they're
Yeah.
out in the rain and and so hearing that I'm like that is a brutal experience, and
Yeah.
film shoots can be exhausting anyway. Working 12-hour days
Oh, yeah.
back to back to back to back to back can be really exhausting anyway, even when you're going home to a hotel room
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you get to take a nice warm shower at the end of the
Yeah.
night and wash off your makeup and come back to work in the morning with a cup of coffee. Like
Mhm.
it still is exhausting.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's stories about Stanley Kubrick kind of
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
Shelley Duvall through stuff
Right.
like this for The Shining, and I don't know. I personally, I feel like if the actor is not aware of what you're doing to them,
Yeah.
or like Toby, what's his name that made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, how he did
Yeah.
stuff like
Was it Toby Hooper or
Toby Hoop. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking,
yeah, yeah.
uh, but yeah, he put his actors in like
Yeah.
really really hot sets
Yeah.
that everyone was sweating and
Mhm.
um, and
Yeah, I mean, and especially with those guys, like you're working with actors who are knowingly acting and
mhm,
making a character, like their job is to act. If you don't feel that they can give you an authentic performance, then you should get a new actor. Don't put them through that kind of stuff. Like the stuff that Stanley Kubrick did was
right.
total, like, dude, that's not cool at all. Like,
Especially knowing what we know about how Shelley Duvall kind of turned out later in her
yeah,
life, it's like, wonder how much, trauma
yeah,
she got put through by men in the industry like
I
that, you
know,
know?
I know.
So,
It's like just trust your actors. They're gonna do a great job. Like, it's not they can give you a performance that will be just as authentic as if you're like getting something that's real.
I will say this, I watched a lot of footage of these actors at different, like, show screenings of
Yeah.
this movie
Yeah.
talking about their experience, and it doesn't, at least to me, it doesn't sound like anybody came away from it and was like, I'm not cool with what happened
Right.
out there."
Right.
Like, I
It does
think that
seem like they were okay with it. Yeah.
I mean, I think they all were probably blown away by the fact that their 30 to $40,000 movie wound up
Yeah.
making $250 million
Right.
and became a worldwide phenomenon. So
Yeah.
if they had any sore feelings about the process, they probably were washed away with
Yeah.
the success and the
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, they really didn't get compensated fairly. I mean, from what
yeah.
I saw, I mean, when you make a movie and you sell it like this, like you can only expect so much. but I don't even think they got that. Like, it seems like they got pretty
That
uh
sucks
taken
too. That it's
advantage
like
of. Yeah, for sure.
it's like
For sure.
everybody, like those three actors and the two directors, I think they all should have equal ownership of this thing, especially the actors. Like they made the movie, like they shot
Yeah,
it.
they did everything.
They
They
did
did
everything.
everything.
They were
Yeah.
your crew. They were like, like I
Yeah.
think that's kind of ridiculous. So
It
I,
is. Yeah.
I there is a conversation that's valid, I think, to be had about the ethics of how this was made, and I think
Oh,
that's a good
yeah.
point that you bring up. But also, it's kind of like how I feel about method acting, where I'm like, I'm not a method actor. I
Right.
don't I don't really particularly like it. Jared Leto does it, and I don't think he needs to. I don't think it like
Yeah.
I think his work
Yeah.
is fine, and I don't see like a meaningful difference. But then like there's Daniel Day Lewis, who I'm like, it seems to be working for you, sir. Like you
Right.
are
Right.
one of the best to ever do it, and it seems that this process works for you. Again, with that, for me, it's always like, as long as you're not making your process take precedent over everyone else's work on set,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's not like your process is now consumed, like you're ruining someone else's process because your
Right. Right.
process is more,
Yep.
like
Yep.
and it's like, if you want to slap someone for real on camera or push someone, just make sure you check with the actor that
Yeah.
like, hey, what if
Yeah.
we did this? Or
Yeah.
like, you know, just make
It
sure you're communicating.
yeah, in the end, it is a job. Like, and
Right.
if you did that in a job, if you slapped a coworker in your job, you could get fired, right? So
Right.
make sure the actors know, which there's a lot of stories where people are like, no, just hit me for real. Right.
Right.
And they'll do it, which it's like, if you're all on the same page and you're all good, that's great. Just make sure everyone knows what you're doing. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I did a play one time with my friend where we Mackenzie, where we were in our underwear wrestling each other.
yeah.
And like the first time we were rehearsing it, we were trying to like block it. And it was a indie play where we didn't have the budget for like a fight choreographer or an
Right.
intimacy coordinator. And I
Right.
just talked to her about it. I just was like, how do you feel about this scene that we have to do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
she was like, I kind of just want to go for it if you're cool with that. And I was like, what do you
Right.
mean? She's like, I kind of just want to like wrestle you. And I was like, I'm cool with it if you are. And I was like, and
Yeah.
I will not actually, I was like, I will do everything I can to like not hurt you. I was like, I'll do everything I can to like make sure you're not like getting slammed on the floor or stuff.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, but she's like, I think we should just kind of go for it. And I was like, if you're cool with it, I'm cool with it. And that's
Yeah.
what we wound up doing. But it was worked out with us that like we were
Yeah.
gonna do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
we sort of came up with like beats to it. We were like,
Nice.
we're gonna do this, then we're gonna wind up in this position, and you're gonna like spank my butt for a while, and then I'm gonna like and yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
sort of worked it out. But we
Nice.
were really we were really wrestling each other,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh but you're right. So last night Olivia and I watched The Visit, M. Night
Oh,
Shyamalan's The
okay.
Visit.
Yeah. I have not
um
seen that.
oh, it's
I've heard it's great.
it has a lot of really great stuff, and it has a lot of like bad M. Night Shyamalan writing that's really grown
Yeah.
worthy,
Yeah.
and just like some lines that are like, ugh, dude, like it just sounds like whenever M. Night Shyamalan tries to write for kids and he tries to like speak in kid slang, it's like that's not it just sounds like someone's
Yeah.
dad being like, don't
Yeah.
the kids talk like this? And it's like, no, dude, it's not. That's
Yes.
not. You
Yes.
know, uh like at one point, this kid says about his grandparents, he's trying to say they're acting shady, but he goes like, they're throwing shade for real. And I'm like, throwing shade means you're being like rude.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not like, and throwing shade is not the same as acting shady.
Yeah.
They're two
Yeah.
different things. But anyway, but that movie is a great example of like the movie works.
Right.
It's totally entertaining. It's totally fun, but at no point in that movie does any part of you believe that you might be actually watching a real
Right.
documentary.
Right.
It's it is so obvious that the cameras that they're picture cameras that you see are like, you're like, that's not the camera that you guys are shooting on. Like
Yeah.
you are shooting this on an Alexa, like for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so obvious when like the girl who's like the main videographer in the movie, when she does like kind of selfie mode where she'll like hold the camera and look into it at
Uh-huh.
herself, it's so obvious that she's not holding the camera, that
Yes.
she's just got her hand on a handle underneath
Yes.
the mat box, and that there is a camera op follow, like
Right.
like, and everything, like every moment that needs to be perfectly captured, and like every moment that the camera needs to get, they always get it, like they always
Mhm.
get the shot.
Yeah.
And that happens in so many of these movies, because what's happened to this genre is like, I heard a critic talking about found footage movies, and he was like, too often people critique films for something that the movie is not trying to do. So,
Yeah.
like, people critique Blair Witch and say it's boring, like,
Right.
there's
Right.
not enough happens, and it's like, the movie's not trying to scare you every 30 seconds or have these, like, big moments that with, like, a monster that jumps out and jumps in front of the screen. It's trying to get you to buy it. It's trying to
Mhm.
get you to
Mhm.
believe in what's happening, and I think that it's incredibly successful at that goal. And
Mhm.
what's happened to the found footage genre since this, it's been massively popularized, but more or less it's like people have just kind of given up on trying to, like, trick you into thinking that it's real, and
Yeah.
it's more or less just a thing to go like, "This'll keep the costs down." Like, that's why the War of the Worlds 2025 movie that we reviewed is the way that it
Right.
is
Right.
it keeps the overhead down, but they're not trying to trick anybody into thinking this really happened.
Mhm.
And since they're not doing that, it's like watching The Office or Parks and Rec, where the camera's, like, always running, and the camera seems to have a limitless battery and seems to
Yeah.
have a memory card that can never be full, and it just
Yeah.
seems to always be capturing every moment,
Mhm.
and like there will be setups where you can tell that they're trying to be like, okay, so the person who's filming the documentary, like, set the camera over here so where no one could see it so they can have
Mhm.
this scene. But it's just like it I never buy it in these other films. And that, it's not that I don't like the films. Like, I really
Right.
like
Right. Right.
Rec. I really REC, or
Yeah. Yeah. Wreck. Yeah. Whatever it is.
I like that movie. I like Cloverfield. I like The
Yeah.
Visit. I
Yeah.
like Paranormal Activity. At least the first one I think I enjoyed.
Mhm.
But this is Blair Witch Project is the only time I've ever watched one of these movies and been like, they're really pulling off the feeling of a real found footage
Yeah.
horror, you
Yeah,
know?
they really it's you kind of only get one, and especially for this genre, this was the one. There were
Yeah,
some before it, but like this made it, this pulled it off and they went for it and they did everything right. They didn't have a soundtrack, they didn't have music. They let all the mistakes in, they kept them in, like they did very little to kind of correct um they just kind of rolled with things that happened, which makes it so much better. I mean, now the found footage genre is fun because you can do things with it, but nobody believes that that any of this stuff is real.
right.
Any found footage movie that comes out now, it's not like when this came out. Like, I think this is real.